Hello there, everyone, and a very happy Friday to you today. My name is Sarah, and I am absolutely delighted to be back again for another Arden Creative Studio Live with you today. And today we are doing some more scrapbooking. And I've got some papers to share with you, some embellishments to show you, and a quick and easy double page spread that we can talk about too. So today we are kind of stepping things back. I know a lot of our viewers are experienced scrapbookers, have done a lot with scrapbooking, which is wonderful. And I also know that we're getting more and more folks who are brand new to scrapbooking or maybe have done scrapbooking in the past and are coming back to it after a little bit of a hiatus from not doing any, maybe not any paper crafting or not any scrapbooking or memory keeping. So this show is going to be focusing a lot on some basics of scrapbooking. And you may also be watching over on the Arden YouTube channel, which we've just released a brand new series called Scrapbooking 101. And these are short videos, gosh, 3, 5, I think 10 minutes is the longest that we've done. And these are going to cover all kinds of themes in scrapbooking, from what adhesive to use to how to pick pattern papers to what is acid-free and lignin-free, all of those details. And so if you are new to scrapbooking, or maybe you just haven't been around it for a while, do check those out because we would love to share this very fun and creative craft with you. So as we are starting today, please feel free to pop in with any comments or questions in the chat. I will do my best to read them as we're demoing. And also the lovely Fiona is backstage and she's going to be posting some links showing the different papers that I'm using today. So I want to show you just quickly, this is the album that I'm going to be stepping us through today. And I've done a double page spread in here, which I'm going to share with you. But I want to talk about the photo or the album size and the photos that you can incorporate into an album this size. And then we'll kind of take it from there. We'll talk about photo matting, some journaling, using embellishments, but we're going to keep it really quick, easy, and simple. Hi, Susan. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Please do feel free to pop a comment into the comment box as you join. We love to see who's joining us today. So I've changed the angle of my camera, and then we can get into the details of the scrapbook pages that I'm going to share with you today. This is a little album that I picked up at my local craft store, and this measures 6.5 by 9 inches. It's a plain craft album. It's got a nice little ribbon closure down here at the bottom and the spiral up here at the top. Probably it's meant to be opened like this, but I really like the format of having it open like so, and so I thought I would continue with that and also with the orientation of the papers that I'm working with today. So again, just my cover that I've done a little bit of painting on here. I've added some paper on the front. I'm not done with this cover yet. I'll figure out what else I'm going to add to it later. But I want to share with you the double page spread that I've made in here. So I've got 2 pages which are facing each other. If I angle it this way, you can kind of see a little bit better how the orientation fits just in our screen. A double page spread is simply when 2 pages in an album are facing one another and they're coordinating. They can coordinate by photo, by color, by theme, however you want to organize those. But they would somehow, like when you open a book, they would read together. So that's what we're going to do today. I've got one photo on one side with some simple journaling, and then I've got another photo on the other side here. And the photos that I'm working with are standard 4 by 6 inch photos, and I'm working, of course, with our 6 by 8 inch papers. So let's have a look at the papers, and then we can get into the construction of our album. And I've got some other ideas for us too as we go through this. So the page starters line from Arden is probably one of my favorites. I love this combination, not only because it's just such a nice size, 6 inches by 8 inches, but also because the colors are gorgeous and because something about a smaller size of album page just seems to be a little bit less intimidating. Now, I know a lot of scrapbookers are working in 12 by 12 format, so a size like this you can see here. And this is a wonderful size, might be a little intimidating to folks and when they're just starting out, or if they have not so many photos for a certain theme or occasion. So that's why this is really nice. You've got two different paper pads here. So the page starters paper pad, and then the page starters solids paper pad. And just looking at the papers here on the front cover, you can see that they coordinate together really nicely. With your page starters paper pad, these will all have patterned designs that have this really beautiful kind of collage effect. You've got the script down here, kind of a distressed look. That's going to be on one side. And then on the other side, you will have kind of a faux texture or a nice tone on tone pattern to go together. So you can sort of see some of these beautiful designs in here. Now, when you're looking at these, we'll use the first one as an example. You see this frame in here. Well, this is the perfect size for, if we're talking about our 4 by 6 photos, you could just pop this right on here. Maybe add some journaling down at the bottom, and you've got an album page ready to go. And I'm using the frame here that's printed onto the pattern paper as my guide. So that's quick and easy. Oh, hi, Jenny. Nice to see you. We've got some more folks popping in. Lovely to see everyone joining us. Now, with your square photos, you may be thinking, or your rectangular photos, you may be thinking, now what do I do with something like this? Well, one answer is you could incorporate some embellishments and maybe create a design going around here and then add some journaling in here if you wanted to. We'll talk more about embellishments in a second. Or you could just ignore the fact that this is a circular pattern and again, place your photo on here, taking advantage of the outside edge, and then you have some really pretty details going around the center. Or, for example, let's see, there was another one in here I wanted to show you. So with these two frames printed on the sheet, now you could trim down your photos or you could have them printed smaller to fit in here. I found that I found our Polaroid camera earlier this morning and I thought, oh, I'm going to take a couple of photos and just see. The sizing is perfect. The photo, it looks like we have a haunted house or something. Obviously the photo is not going to go in here, but this size, if you have one of those little Polaroid cameras, those can work. Or again, just ignore those and take use of the larger frame around here. So these are really, really handy when it comes to creating your background pages. If you're thinking, okay, maybe not my style or too confusing or anything like that, there's also the option to go just with the solids. Or of course, you can see here, they would combine beautifully together. With the solids, they're not really solid. They read, I'm making air quotes, they read as a solid. This has a very subtle dot pattern. Then some of the others have like a really cool linen design on here. So they are very subtle patterns, but there's still something on this page that makes it not completely flat and opaque. So you've got some kind of faux texture on here. So again, you could simply place your photo on here, maybe do some journaling on there and call it good. You're good to go. Or you can add on as much as you want. So I wanted you to be able to see kind of where some starting points are. Another question that I get from scrapbookers who perhaps don't have access to albums readily available, like in their homes, or they haven't seen albums in their craft stores before, sometimes they will think that you're putting your photo on the paper and then keeping it in the pad. So just so you know, the pages all come out. They're kind of gummed up at the top and they'll just tear right out like this. And then what you can do is trim off this strip up at the top. You can use your scissors for this, or you can also use your paper trimmer to trim that off. So if that was ever mysterious to anybody, I want to make sure and kind of clear that up. So that's an easy way to just pull those out and then you're ready to go. And you can simply glue them into whatever album you have. Or if you wanted to, you could create your page and glue it onto a larger background page that would go into a larger album. So hopefully that all makes sense there. Okay, so let's start with our first page and we can kind of walk through the construction of this. So we'll start with the simpler of the two pages. And I've got my photo here. I've also got my background paper. And I thought what we could do is work with a different color scheme in the paper pack. So I love these kind of golden colors here, but I thought this would also be pretty with this kind of peachy pink tone. And I think this design is just really gorgeous. So you've got some faux text on here, some shading. You've also got the little botanicals. On the other side, you've got one of those frame options too. But let's use the botanical side here. So I've got my photo and that's going to position right in here. Now, a couple of things that I've done on my original album page is to provide some matting on here. And this works kind of like a frame. We talk about this in the Scrapbooking 101 series too. So you could put your photo right down on here, or you can highlight it a bit more by adding a frame. You can see I've got a white piece of cardstock underneath here where I've done some of my journaling. And I also have a piece of that solid paper underneath as a mat. So let's have a look here. I'm using some of the Arden Bright White cardstock, which is one of my favorites to use for journaling, matting, stamping, all kinds of paper crafts. And I've trimmed this to be a little bit bigger than my photo. I'm going to leave some space down here for my handwritten journaling. So from here, I'm going to glue my photo onto this piece of white cardstock. Another thing that we talk about in our series is adhesives. There are lots of different adhesives out there. If you want to make sure to use an acid-free, lignin-free, or acid-free adhesive, do make sure that you're checking the labels on those. Some people don't find that a priority. Other people really do. Acid is one of those things that can damage your photos over time. And it's in paper, it's in embellishments, it's in adhesives, it's in ink, it's in pretty much everything that you can think of in terms of scrapbooking. For some people, they really want to avoid it. For other people, they don't care a whole lot. My job is to make sure that you are aware just so that you can make an informed decision. Okay, so I have my photo on here and I could, of course, pop this down and we're set to go. I do want to add that second mat around the outside edge, so I thought I'd show you my paper trimmer in action here. And this is a paper trimmer I've had for a very, very long time. This is one of the sliding kinds. So the blade is this orange piece here, and this little dip right here is where the blade slides back and forth so that it can trim my paper. So let me grab one of these sheets from the solid pack. And I'm going to kind of eyeball this here. I'm not gluing this down quite yet, but I'm going to sort of hold it on here, put this up right next to the edge of my paper trimmer. And I'm going to leave a little bit of room on the other side there. Hold it down and then run that blade through. And I've got my piece cut this way. And then let's see. Turn this around and then simply slide it the other way. Super simple to do. And then I've got my piece cut down. So again, you can use scissors for this. You may have another different style of paper trimmer on hand. I do find that having a paper trimmer gives me a lot more accuracy than simply trying to do it by hand with scissors. So whichever way you decide to go. Now I've got my double mat on here. Back to my original page, you can see that I've got my writing on this empty space underneath my photo. And what I want to do here is do a little bit of pre-planning. And that's going to help me make sure that I can fit the words on here around my embellishment. So if I'm going to kind of plan forward and say, oh, I really do like this large embellishment here, and I'd like to incorporate that on my page, but I also want to make sure that I have enough room for that journaling. Just going to kind of position this on here for right now and say, okay, this is about how much room I have. And then I'll grab my pen and simply write down on here. Now, journaling is one of those things that I find a lot of people have questions about this, because some people like their handwriting, some people don't. Some people don't know what to say, or they feel like they don't know how to condense it all into a certain space. We do also have a segment on our journaling tips and ideas too. So let's see, I'm going to make sure that I've got my embellishment here. Let me turn this around and say my journaling. And I'm just using a black fine tip pen for this. So I make sure that I've got my space on here, and then I've got my floral piece on here as well. I will confess, journaling people, on the original page, I must have done this 5 times before I fit it in properly. I ended up kind of going too close to the edge. I didn't like the way that looked. So do be patient with yourself. Sometimes you may need to have a second go around before you have it exactly the way you want it. So, okay, I'm going to continue with my layout here and with that embellishment. And now I've pretty much got all of my parts and pieces ready to go here. So I'm going to start by just adding my matted photo onto my page. Susan, you like the style of the spiral? I do too. I thought it was a really fun and different style of album to have. Sometimes you can find some really fun and surprising options at your local craft store. Okay, I'm going to position this down. Before I really press it down, to make sure, does this fit on here? It does. And knowing that I want to put it into my album, and that I'll have a little bit of space going around the outside edge. This is where I can make sure that I've got it within the boundaries there. Okay, and glue down my embellishment. Now, you can also use a double-sided tape for your embellishments as well. In the interest of demoing live, I like to use a glue stick because it's just easier to apply quickly. And watching me pull the liners off of double-sided tape is probably not the most entertaining way for us to spend our time together. Now, I've also got a little leaf embellishment here too, and I'm going to add that in here as well, going along the edge of the photo, kind of curl around there. So let's talk about embellishments. So another aspect of this line is that you have this beautiful embellishment ephemera pack. Mine is almost empty. So we'll flip it over and you can see what some of the designs are that are actually included in here. There's over 100. There's, let's see, 117. So you have these really nice labels. You've got some smaller sentiments and words, larger words, and all of these really pretty accent pieces here. It all goes together, which is wonderful. And this is really taking a lot of the guesswork out of doing your scrapbooking. Sometimes just looking at all of the different options, from albums to papers to embellishments, can feel really overwhelming. So this is why we're happy when things are coordinated and curated for us. This way I know that the pink in these flowers will match the pink in this background piece, the greens, the blues, everything will go together. So I've got my page almost ready to go. I do have one additional little accent on here, which is this butterfly. And I have a lot of butterflies in this set that I can choose from. I'll grab this little guy here. And again, just adding this right here at an angle. So talking about the photo in general, now this is a pretty open photo, meaning that I don't have like a specific person that I'm focusing on. In this photo, I happen to have a lot of um, kind of darker shades down here at the bottom. And then I've got a nice open sky here too. The part of the photo that I really wanted to focus on is this area here. And I just thought it was so pretty with the stone against the backdrop of that sky and how pretty it all looked as this kind of rural, idyllic building in France. I don't know anything more about it. So that's what I thought this album could be is just a collection of those photos that you take that you think are nice. They don't necessarily have a specific theme or an event or an occasion wrapped around them, but just, photos that I took that I thought were good. So I've got this portion all set and ready to go. Now what I could do is simply glue this into my album, or if I really wanted to go to those larger pages, and this is a sheet from the Laurel Grove 12 by 12 collection, another one of my favorites. I could simply pop this on here, and then I could add perhaps other photos on here. I could add some more journaling. I could do memorabilia, lots of different other options as well. So this is where you can start to see where the papers, although they are in a 6 by 8 format, you can grow them. You can grow them to be a larger size, whether that's 12 by 12 or indeed 8 by 8. So you've got lots of options there, which is something that we scrapbookers like. Options, but also make it organized so we don't get overwhelmed. Okay, let's have a look at our second page here too. And I'm going to flip this over so that we can see what the other side looks like. Again, I've got another photo with lots of sort of dark space here in the foreground. The part that I wanted to emphasize is this really beautiful sort of sunrise on the mountains with this grove of trees here. And I just thought the sunlight and the shading were really nice. So that's the part I'm going to focus on. This darker area down here, which is just grass and ground, this can be covered up. So that's what I've done here on my layout. I've got more going on this layout than on the previous one. So I have another one of those floral clusters, which are just a beautiful addition. I also have one of the labels from the ephemera set. I've got another butterfly. And I've got some additional journaling going on here. Not only do I have my handwritten journaling, I also have a rub-on journaling, and I have an ephemera die cut piece, which is also journaling on here. So 3 different versions of this all sort of layered together. And this is a fun way, again, especially if you don't have a lot of personal text that you want to add to the photo, you can simply put the date on there and then let some of the embellishments do the journaling work for you. So that's a nice shortcut to have on hand. Alrighty, so again, I'm going to grab one of these beautiful background papers. This is one with the square format here, and I'm going to take advantage of that square and just let those beautiful collage lacy edges do their work on here. I also have another photo map that I've already pre-cut, and this is one of those faux texture designs, but have a look. It's got this really beautiful linen look. I just think is so pretty. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this down and use this as a photo mat. Now, a photo mat is something that acts almost like if you consider when you're hanging photos or you're hanging pictures in your home, putting a frame, like a picture frame, around a photo or another photo or another picture, a painting perhaps, before you put it onto your wall. So it does create a really nice bit of extra polish around here. Before I glue this down, I'm going to make sure that I've got all of my additional parts and pieces ready to go here. And I've got a little container here. I got these at my supermarket and they're really handy for keeping all of my paper crafting embellishments organized as I'm working. So this is one of those little things. You go into the supermarket and they have that section in the middle where it's like all the stuff that you don't ever go into the supermarket for. And then as you're shopping for all of the things you did come in for, you realize that, oh, right, I could use these little containers, and they do come in handy. So I've got my label here. They come in different colors, so I can pick and choose which ones I want. I'm going to position that here and kind of play with all of my positioning before I commit to anything. Got another large cluster there, so this is going to coordinate with my other one. And then I have this really beautiful scripty sentiment here. Life is an adventure. Now, around the rest of the journaling, I could fill this in with my own handwriting if I wanted to, or I can pull out some of the rub-ons. So scoot that aside. Let's talk about rub-ons, because rub-ons are something I absolutely adore. You may remember them from your childhood. My husband and I were just talking about this the other night, and I was like, oh, I had so many rub-ons, and now they're back into my life once again. So these are wonderful because you have so many different options for adding some texture, style, words, patterns onto your pages. Because they're just applied right onto your background paper, you don't have to worry about things being extra bulky. So it keeps things relatively flat. Also in this pack, you do have an applicator. It's like a popsicle stick here. And you've got two sheets. So 4 sheets in total. Okay, that's my math for today. So you've got 2 sheets of this one, 2 sheets of this one. And the designs are really beautiful. Again, you know that they will all coordinate because that's what Katie has done for us in this collection. And so you've got these beautiful butterflies and focal elements, as well as lots and lots of journaling on here too. So how to use your rub-ons? Well, you've noticed I've trimmed out some of these already. What you're going to do is figure out which sentiment or image you want. And I think I'll do the, what does this say? I'm reading it upside down. Hello happiness. I'm gonna use the hello happiness on this one. And holding both of the sheets together, so there's a liner sheet underneath here. I'm gonna keep these 2 together and then just trim this out from the main sheet. Set that aside. And then I'm going to apply this to my piece of paper. Before I do this though, again, kind of want to have all of my elements out here, so I make sure that I've got room for this. If I say I want that there, and then I want my label here. And I've decided on this one. So, okay, I know that I've got space right about there. I'm going to let everything sit there and pull off the backing sheet, my rub-on. And when I do this, I want to be really careful that I'm not touching the back of this, because this can come off on my hands, but I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to kind of position this here, see if I've got that straight, and then press this down. Now I can remove these things and then really rub it down. There's some tack on here, which is nice because then it's not going to go sliding all over the place. Then you find your popsicle stick or your applicator. You can also use a bone folder for this, and just gently but firmly burnish this in place. I'm using the tip of the applicator here, and I'm going to make sure that I go around all of the details, all of the tops and bottoms of these letters. You don't have to put a lot of muscle into this, but you do want to make sure that you get firm, even pressure around all of the edges there. Okay, now I'm going to pull up one side of this slowly And I'm doing it slowly rather than pulling it off like a Band-Aid, because if I discover there's an area that I haven't transferred, I can just place this back in and continue with the application. There we go. So I've got my sentiment on here. And now if I want to add my date down at the bottom or any other journaling, now's the time to do that. So I'm going to flip this over and let's just say, I'll keep the same date on here, August 4, 2018. Oh, that seems like a long time ago. All righty. So then I've got my handwriting on here. I've got presumably Katie's handwriting on here. And then I will also add in my other journaling. So now I can get all of my parts and pieces and glue them all down. And planning out, laying out your pages like this before you commit to your adhesive is a really good way to make sure that you don't have sort of panic moment when you realize, oh no, that this isn't all going to fit on here, or I wish I had allowed space for this other element. So let's see, I'm going to go like this. Now I know that I've got some space up here. And then glue this down. Now, when you're working on your scrapbook pages, you can go with themes, like the themes we all kind of know and love with travel, vacation, weddings, babies, that kind of thing. You can also, please do feel free to scrapbook the little life moments. And sometimes I think these are the most fun to look back on when you think, oh, right, this is, a snapshot of our daily lives at a certain time. Like I was just saying, oh, 2018 seems like a really long time ago. Of course, it didn't at the time, but I think that's also part of the fun of scrapbooking is when you go back and you're looking at those events and occasions that were not necessarily the most earth-shattering. This was a walk in the countryside. So yet it's one of my most favorite memories when I come back and look at this. Okay, now I've got my other sentiment here. I do have room for another butterfly. Do I have another butterfly I can put in here? Let's see. Position her there and then overlap this. I think I'll do that. And with this bit of ephemera, with my other sentiment here, I decided to add a little bit of definition here. And instead of applying my glue stick or using double-sided tape, I'm using foam tape. And foam tape, I love foam tape. This is a dimensional tape. It gives you a little bit of lift with some of your embellishments, just an extra bit of dimension there. And I've trimmed down little tiny pieces of it and put this on the back of my ephemera piece. This is optional, so this is something you don't have to do this. You can glue everything flat if you want to, but sometimes foam tape is just nice to have a little bit of dimension. And scrapbooking, like many hobbies, is full of things that you need, like you need scissors, glue, or cutting method and adhesive. But there are also lots of nice to have things. And the more you scrapbook, I think the more you find what you do like to have on hand, as well as the things that maybe you don't need. So you'll find both of those. So then there we go. We've got a second page done. And again, what I could do is simply place this in my album, or I'm pulling out this Laurel Grove sheet again, this 12 by 12. And I could add this on here too. I could actually incorporate both of these together if I wanted to. So again, there's room to grow in here. I could have them straight or I could have them overlapping a little bit. So you've got lots of different options, just depending on what your needs are in terms of creating your album, or how big you want to go or how small you want to go. But again, don't discount these little albums that you may be finding at your craft store. Again, this one is 6.5 by 9 inches with the spiral binding on here. And I just thought it was fun to have it be a slightly different format. So that's the back of it and the front cover. which I just added some white acrylic paint around the outside edges there, and then added another sheet from our page starters collection. And then I've got some additional memorabilia or additional ephemera on here too. And then I can take it from here. Super simple and easy to do. And this could be great for your travel photos. I also thought too, let me grab one of these here. I have another photo, not travel related, so just a day at the beach. Again, works beautifully. Same style of 4x6 photo. If I could just tuck this under here and add different journaling, I think this would also look beautiful too. So they're not only easy to use, but these page starters really do have a lot of versatility. And then of course, as much or as little embellishing and journaling as you want to add around the outside edges is a lot of fun to think about as well. So hopefully this has answered some questions. If you are new to scrapbooking, from how do I put this into an album, or how do I put my photos down onto the background page, or do I need to add a lot of journaling? Hopefully this has cleared up some questions. And we would love to also invite you over to the Arden YouTube channel, where we've got even more tips and ideas and lots of fun samples, as well as we're talking about scrapbooking 101. So hopefully you can join us over there. Fiona is adding those videos a couple per week. So there's already some up there and more to come. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I had a really nice time going through scrapbooking with you, and hopefully you enjoyed it as well. Do take care. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a great weekend ahead, and I will look forward to seeing you back here in a couple of weeks. So take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.